here with the rock kind of floating down from above. You guys are still inside of this blizzard, inside of a little cove of a cave along that northwestern side of the cliff, more or less moving away from this location where you last saw this creature. It is still deep into the actual night of your rest. You all are approaching the points um, where, like, you can kind of expect the dawn of the aurora, the beginning of what would be day, to be coming about here sometime soon. Not in this next hour, but it is one of those things where that tension builds towards dawn is coming. That has always been kind of the hope of sort of how mortals exist in these dire circumstances. You all are tucked into this little alcove. The wind is still kind of blasting down from the north. It is kind of swirling around. You are basically in a little point where the wind swirls and creates a bit of a dead spot in the actual winds here, but very quickly kind of picks up as you leave that sort of just little dent almost in this cliff above you. When you look up Fen, you will basically see different points where you're kind of like looking up and it's just whiteness. All of the snow flying by. You guys are in the tiniest little crescent of a moon, so there's kind of light that's cast, but this is sort of the dimmest light that really comes as you all are approaching the new moon. As well, this cliff face is along that western side, and the closer you are to the sunrise, the closer the moon is to setting. So there's even less kind of glow at this point, putting you all in near complete darkness. Am I correct that there is no fire currently in this watch?
Yeah, I think we determined that we didn't really have anything to burn, so like we didn't have any fuel.
Gotcha. So when you're kind of looking up and you're like watching this white, you're hearing these sounds of this creature, things have already been dropped on you all from above. And in kind of this moment, you're going to look up, and in just flecks of the white dissipating, you see kind of clear sky above where you see blackness. And it's like flashing white, and all of this whiteness is kind of crossing by until you start to see like these two large uh pentagons almost, before it kind of comes to that, like the whiteness is still the snow flying by. What's making you almost see these pentagons is that there are claws kind of reaching out of the sky, before very quickly you see kind of two big V's as these massive wings are just in kind of a half pulled in upward little point, and they are drawing the air into them so that this creature is almost floating down from above. It is not falling, it is not flying towards you. It is very controlled, kind of falling before it is going to kind of like sink into the ground. Still with a large kind of collision. This creature still is massive. It still is heavy, and it very much kind of dwarfs this environment. But as you kind of see its wings kind of like pulled inside to its body, this creature that was almost 60 or 80 feet wide is very quickly kind of like cinching its body up to where it's probably about 30 or so feet long, like head to tail. Probably about, again, like 70 or 80 feet wide if its wings were fully opened. With everything kind of cinched in, it's a much narrower frame as it kind of lands and begins to become like kind of a smaller target. If you all look here, I believe at present you should see the two different kind of interpretations of this map at present. So if it's not clear just by the fact that I have vertical and battle map there, that vertical representation is simply going to be the fourth dimension as things happen. If the bird flies up, it will gain elevation. Where it is on that vertical map only matters for its height. If something is closer to the left-hand side, that doesn't mean anything about where it is. Something is closer to the right-hand side, it doesn't mean anything about where it is. Your spatial presence is based on where your token is on the one that's labeled battle map. Is that pretty clear for everyone?
Yep, makes sense to me.
When I set up the miniatures here, I feel like I should have Fen walking out in front of the others. But I don't really remember what your watch was like. My apologies there. Do you do you remember? I feel like before you were maybe walking just beyond the light, but maybe it was beyond the light of a torch from when um Brennick was still on watch.
No, I think I was on watch again, and I looked up, and there was a brief clearing of the skies, and we kind of locked eyes where I saw him and he saw us, and the gig was up.
I got you. So, but do you remember where spatially you were when this thing is kind of falling from above?
I would imagine I was out a little bit to see up the vertical cliff.
Gotcha. Do you want to place yourself there? Excellent. So essentially at this point here, you guys kind of have like the big creature that is Valine. For what it's worth, you guys could even be like sharing a space with Valine. I am sure she is a veritable furnace of heat with how large she is. So we can kind of do that, but that's kind of the vagary of why I placed you guys there. Is on some level she also produces shelter. Does that sound good for the two of you?
Yeah, yep,
Yes.
good for.
Alrighty. Well, then, with that, that's where all the bad stuff starts to happen. I am going to bring up initiative. You guys can select your tokens, and we are about to roll into this initiative. Alrighty, Ben. So you are looking up into the sky above and seeing this creature as it is descending down into the ground here. What are you going to do?
I'm going to shout loudly, "Be gone with you! Our quarrel is not with you, but your master." Hoping to alert the other party members of the danger, as loud as I can.
Gotcha. Going for perception or persuasion, rather.
Yeah.
Gotcha. You can certainly roll a persuasion here. And let me have you roll a let me have you roll a performance as well. And then let me get perceptions from the other two of you, please. Alrighty. So, any movement from Fen at this point?
Uh, I guess I'm gonna stand my ground with my hand on my sword.
Gotcha. So as this creature's descending down and its wings kind of cupping to the air to kind of slow its descent as it's about to slam into the ground, there's almost a stillness in the snow and the wind as its size just kind of dwarfs this little alcove that you guys have found here in the ice. And in that moment of silence is right as you sort of yell out to it, stirring everybody above. All of you are sleeping, effectively surprised here, but all of you are going to stir effectively as your turn goes by. You cannot do anything, but you can now react at the end of this turn. Might not end up being anything as far as how things play out, but I think that is about how it is going to roll through Valine, Brennick, and Valixis here until we get to the actual creature from above. As it lands, it is going to drop down to the ground, and as you're kind of shouting out to it, there's just going to be the first kind of sign of it almost like recognizes a voice is kind of happening. You see a spark of intelligence in this creature, but the moment you think it might actually be like listening to your words, in an instant its beak just flies out forward as this creature's neck kind of shoots out towards you and its whole body kind of reaches into this. It is going to do a quick 1-2 as it pecks at you and then claws at you.
AC 18. Come at me, bro.
All right, so with the first strike, its peck is going to smash into you, and it is going to do 29 points of piercing damage to you. With its second grasp out with its claw, you are going to be grappled and restrained as it hits you, and this one is going to do 20 points of slashing damage as it grabs you up into its claws.
It was nice knowing you guys.
And that is going to get right back around to you, Fen. You are grappled and restrained. You can try to break yourself free, which is essentially your action and a test, or you can try to make some sort of attacks against it, and you would have disadvantage.
I'm gonna try to break free.
Gotcha. So as far as things go, this will tend to be a strength athletics test. If you would like to do something acrobatics wise, let me know what you have in mind, what you think you could do to call that an acrobatics. Because at present, you are still like grasped into its hands. But if you've got like a cool story, I might allow it.
Yeah, I can't think of anything. I'll go straight strength.
Gotcha. Yep. So you've got solid athleticism, but you can definitely make that.
Wah, wah.
So at present, you are still failing that. This is one of those things where you have a sense of this creature. Do you have any interest in using any inspiration? And do you know how many you would use?
Yeah, I keep forgetting about that, even though I keep the postie with the 5 stars right in front of my goddamn face. Hmm. I've never done this before, so I'm gonna say 3.
All right. While you're thinking about that, before I actually take 3 as an answer, let me ask you this: do you remember the modifiers for when it did damage to you? And do you remember like the general? Like, did I even ask you your AC when I rolled with an 11? What kind of DC do you think this is to escape this creature?
It's got to be high, like 18.
So what I would say is normally like a difficult challenge, like for a low level character, or like a challenge is like DC 10. Difficult challenge is 15. Very hard 25. Or very hard is like 20, and then into the impossibles is like 25 and 30. Do you think 18 is a solid go to, or do you think it's higher?
I'm hoping 18 is enough.
So when you reach out to kind of push yourself free, you can force these claws open. As you kind of drop out of it, you can kind of like fall to the ground effectively. You can break yourself free. Your action is spent. You still have movement, but you will be kind of prone to the. You don't have to be prone.
Okay, then I'm going
Actually,
to.
wait. Let me make that be a dexterity check for you. Just a dexterity check. Yeah, 100% as you kind of like fall out of this creature's grasp. You kind of like fall into whatever you would like to do here.
Then I'm going to spend one key to patient step disengage.
Gotcha. So the key turns that into the bonus action for you, and then you got your movement.
It's actually step of the wind. I'm sorry for the disengage.
Yeah, that was what I was thinking, but it turns it into um, the bonus action. Yeah.
Correct. So I'm going to move my full distance, which is 50, and that's end of turn.
Gotcha. So as you kind of clear out to that area, just sort of approaching that end of the cliff, you're already going to feel much more substantial winds across you. As you cover around that corner, there's going to be the blast and kind of the whirl that almost like pushes you back as much as it kind of spins you back towards this creature. But in general, looking back from where you are right now, you're already kind of out of sight of this creature. As far as things go inside of this blizzard, you guys have a lot more visibility inside of that kind of nook than you do kind of outside of it. But as Fen kind of makes his little movement there, what would you all like or expect Valine to do?
I mean, I feel like given her nature, even though she's like, big now, she's not going to go charging in uh the front lines. I'm not sure what sort of spells she has. I know she's
Uh,
used that like those spectral arm things before.
if you all expect her to use a spell, that's sufficient to let me know. As far as things go, like I think there's certain some ground to say she's not necessarily keen to simply be a brute, but at the same time, she is incredibly intelligent. Like anybody who recognizes kind of you do what you do because you're good at it, if you've got natural talent kind of thing. I feel like she's intelligent, so I don't know if I would fully rule out that she couldn't do physical things for you all here.
Grapple the rock.
Yeah, I mean, what do you think about that, Rashad?
I feel like with her size, yeah, her nature, like mentioned her nature, she definitely would cast a spell. At this point, so yeah, grappling the rock with her spectral hands, I feel like that's something she'd probably do.
I got you. That's not how the hands are going to work out. That's just been the flavor of her cantrip. But Justin, are you still kind of on spell?
Now that Fen mentioned grappling, and yeah, I mean, I'm more leaning towards that, especially since she knows that now she's been traveling with us. She knows that Valixis and Brannick can maybe try and attack from range, so if she can kind of keep it um not incapacitated, but like keep it in one place, then maybe it gives us a chance. And she's the only one big enough to do it. So yeah, I'm leaning more towards Fen's idea now.
Alrighty. With that, let me have Don roll a d20 for me and give it a +6. So ooh, that's going to be rough. Yeah, so she can rush towards it and kind of like leap onto it to try to restrain or try to grapple it. In the long run, it is going to very quickly kind of break itself free from this. As far as things go, I think that's going to be what she can offer for you all, at least there. And it will go to Brannick for what would you like to do?
Yeah, so like as she's rushing forward, Brannick's kind of like shouting, like try to keep it in place. And he's gonna kind of moving a bit, kind of along the edges here, and he's going to kind of throwing at his hand, like focusing on a point past the rock. He is going to launch a fireball, um, trying to essentially explode it past the thing and have it wash back and hit the rock.
Gotcha. You are welcome to place a fireball if you would like. For what it is worth, you don't really have to. It is easy enough for you to hit just the rock and no one else here.
Yeah, I'm thinking like kind of 20 feet beyond it, so that it just yeah.
I believe you are DC 15. Yeah.
Yep.
So yeah, that is going to explode pretty quickly. You are able to keep that point with the rock fully inside of it, and it's certainly going to be thrown about as that explosion sort of racks through it.
All right, and yeah, just like still shouting encouragement, trying to like get like hold it down, hold it down. But that's all for Brannick for now.
And how about from Valixis? What do you have?
Well, Alexis is actually gonna do some of the same. She's not gonna move from where she's at. She's just gonna throw a fireball at the creature from where she's at and make it not hit her friends.
Gotcha. Valixis can almost use like the concussive force of Brennick's fireball to throw the body of the rock into their fireball, and these two explosions are kind of one against the other, almost creating walls for the other one to explode into. And once again, its body is going to be racked by these explosions and burns, and they are certainly effective as you two blast together into this.
And that'll be it for that.
Alrighty. So as these explosions wreck this creature, and as Valine is trying to grasp onto it to hold it in place, it is going to pick up and fly away from Valine. Would one of you like to smash out at it? Can I get a d20 from, let's go from Fen. I think this is, ooh, I don't actually know her. PB, that's your proficiency bonus? Yeah, that's what I was looking for. +8 on that swing. So yeah, as the rock kind of flies away from her to the east, just with a kind of quick punch out as it's defeating her grapple, let me get you to roll. Oh shit, I didn't look up her damage chart. I'm not prepared. I think Gargantuan is huge is a D12. I don't have a damage chart for that. I feel like go with a D12 +6, please. So 10 just punching into it. And it is actually flying off and into Ben, where it is going to try the same thing again to bite into you, which will hit 30 damage, take you down.
Yep.
And then it is going to try to rake at you with its claws. Do you have any interest in trying to make that miss you? And do you have any thoughts as to how many you would have to put in to make that miss you?
Well, at this point, I got nothing left to lose. Roll them all, whatever I got.
All right, I think you've got 9 more, and that is enough to make it miss. And then to start off here, let's see a d20 from you. Actually switch over to Whisper so I can see a d20 from you. But I would like to see a 20 here. Net 20. I don't think that one whispered. Check in the top right or in the lower right where you see the crimson B for beyond 20. And you can switch that over to like always whisper for this roll.
Yeah, I did. It's on Always Whisper.
Try one more. Oh, it's because you rolled inside to roll 20. Doing it like that, you have to do the death save. If you set your hit points to 0, you should see that from your hit points. If you're just doing it in roll 20, there's a little GM toggle at the top of the dice roller. If you just select the GM and then scroll down to where it shows the D20. All right. So the turn is going to twist to Valine here. Valine has ran out for it, failed to grapple this creature, and thrown a punch and got a nice little hit from it. What are you all thinking here? Spell work, physical, something creative? What are y'all thinking?
I'm thinking after failing to grapple it the first time, seeing it flying off rather than and going like chasing it out into the blizzard. I think she'd maybe try and still try and attack it, but probably maybe from range with the spell if she can.
And what does Rashad think of that? Barring that I didn't hear anything from him, maybe we've lost him for the moment. Don, what are you thinking would Valine do here?
Uh, well, probably after I don't know. I feel like if she didn't succeed the first time, she'd resort to a spell.
Can you hear me?
We got you now. Could you hear us before and we just couldn't hear you?
Kinda. It was barely, but everything sounds clear now.
Gotcha. So the other two at present are thinking, since Valine missed one physical attempt, do you think she's going to work a spell here, or do you think she's going to try again even though it's failed? They're leaning towards spells.
Yeah, definitely spells.
Alrighty. So she is going to kind of noticeably recoiling from her punch, like as she's kind of like pulling back from this punch, you're going to see as her fist start to glow in this kind of like eerie blue, and you can see there's almost like a purple like darkness that's kind of consuming the light, and there's almost this interplay of light coming from her body as this darkness is starting to consume the light, and it is going to turn this entire area around her into a kind of dark setting as all of the light is sucked away, and it's going to feel darker and darker, and her chanting is going to get louder into a pretty horrific language here. I don't think anybody speaks, but at very least, I think Fen could recognize as Orcish simply from being Elvish. Um, what was the reason for Velixa speaking Elvish?
Shoot, hold on.
It's not a big deal. I'm just trying to think, like, do you have a reason to know, like, the sound of orc? But it's not a big deal regardless. Um, but she's going to start to chant the spell, and in a moment of her voice dropping and kind of like silence coming from her, the darkness is going to disappear from around Brennick and Velixis, and you will see as this spark of blue light just kind of erupts out of the rock, and you can see as this black sludge almost starts to like sink across its body. I need Don to roll 8d8, please. And then can I have Brennick roll a Constitution saving throw for me for the rock? Well, it's got con, but her DC is one higher. Uh, so that's 37. You're going to watch as this sludge kind of sinks across this creature's back, and you can almost see as it's like boiling away the flesh to where there's like the spine and its bone structures is starting to become visible, and like the feathers themselves are starting to rot away from this creature's flesh. Brennick, what would you like to do here?
All right, so Brannick gonna kind of running past as because he saw he realized kind of he can't see Fen anymore and Thinking, Fenn's the only one who could probably get us through this place. Kind of our guide. Kind of like circling around Valine. Actually, I think he's going to go different. Yeah, and then
I don't even think it's difficult terrain to go through creatures that large. I feel like the difficult terrain is only one size, but she's two
okay,
sizes larger than you. So I think going through her and the rock are both without a problem for you.
okay, but I assume like the rock. Does the rock take up like any square that it's in, or like so?
Technically, the rock is 4x4, so it doesn't really like look like it's too far into like the corners, but it takes up a pretty massive section.
Because I'm thinking like so I don't have enough room. I don't have enough to get to like right above Fen. I could only get to like the spaces one to the left of him, but I think the rock might be occupying those.
I think that's the same part of the rule. I don't think you can't occupy its space when it is that large. And for what it's worth, I'm not really worried about it right now.
All right, so in that case, Brannick, as he kind of rushes out and he spots Ben, and he kind of like something that he was kind of like dreaming of before all this happened, kind of like suddenly, makes sense. He's like, I was hoping it wasn't true, and then he's gonna Misty Step um, over here, and he's going to move to stabilize Fen, and he's gonna give himself. I'm gonna give myself a 14 on that.
Yeah, so I'm going to place you right next to him and outside of it because had we played this Theater of the Mind, which I would have rather have done, that would have been 100% the type of thing that you can get to him with, especially since you missed these steps. Do you know what I mean?
Gotcha. Okay. And he's going to be like, "Hang on, hang on, Fen. You can't die on me." And just working to kind of stabilize him, kind of like and that's his turn. That's all he can do, except
All
look
right.
up at like this huge bird in front of him too, and be like,
Did you have to dash there?
no. So I use my movement, my regular movement, and then my Misty Step bonus action.
And then did
And
you do
then
a medicine check with your divine, with your important?
oh, and sorry, yeah, the 14 was a portent dice for my action would be to stabilize, yeah. And then I gave myself a 14
Okay,
on that
gotcha.
check.
Gotcha. So yeah, you are currently stabilized then, Don, but you do not have a medicine kit on Brennick, right?
No, so I can't.
Gotcha. So that stabilizes Fen, and that should be the end of turn for Brennick. We will go to Velixis. What would you like to do?
Valencia said she's going to actually move a bit downward. Get, I'm not sure. I don't think I went that too far. Just get a little bit better line of sight. She's going to hit the bird with the rock with another fireball to try to get it to move away from him. Eventually, trying to draw its attention.
Excellent. Let's see that. Don, can you roll a d20 for me? +0. As this creature is like melting from its back down, it's not really paying attention to this little spark of fire that's forming beneath it and is going to take the full brunt of that explosion as it is kind of thrown almost vertically into the air. Anything else from Velixis at present?
Nah, I think I can do anything else, so that'll be it.
So at present, if it's not clear by the description of things, this rock is pretty well messed up here. I need a D20 plus 0 from, let's go Velixis this time. So it is going to take flight. It is going to try to put as much distance as it can between you all. Don, would you like to roll another fist attack from Valine as she is reaching out for it? It is a +8 to hit. That is a successful hit. I think I said a D12 plus 9 last time, or a D12 plus 6 last time. Yeah, plus 6? Yes. Does anybody else have any sort of reaction where they are at present?
I think Brannick's completely focused on trying to stabilize Fen, so he wouldn't. I don't think he would take any, and he wouldn't. I don't think he's got his blade out to do that. So he's gonna let it go.
Gotcha. Fen is
Or I should say,
unconscious.
sorry, I should say not react, not let it go. Anyway.
Yeah, I gotcha. Fen is unconscious, but stabilized here. Valine is the one who's most respondent to this creature leaving at present. It is effectively out of sight, and you are attacking into the blind. Do you all have any interest in Valine trying to retaliate as this creature tries to flee?
I think knowing how injured it looks, I think she would try to. I think she would try to finish it.
Agreed.
So with this, I'm gonna say that she's kind of reacting on that same level, and she is once again thinking for her most powerful spell, and she is looking to blight this creature's flesh again. Uh, as she's kind of reaching out into the unknown, having lost sight of the creature, I'm gonna say it will have advantage on its save, but like there's still the chance there. But for what it is worth here, let's go for a D or 2d20 from um, Brennick, and then again 8d8 from Don. Brennick, do you have any reaction as this creature is flying away? Effectively, it's back to your turn. You can't see it. But is there anything that you are doing in that last moment of it fleeing?
I think he's similarly seeing kind of like Ben looks like okay, he's still breathing. He's gonna look up, not see it there, but if he can see kind of where almost like glancing to the lean and trying to see where she's looking, thinking maybe it headed that way, he's going to, I think, similarly thinking, that we're probably not going to get a better chance in this. He's going to throw out his hands and he's going to, I think, cast another fireball out into the sky after the thing, trying to Yeah, because I guess I technically don't actually have to see the point that I'm aiming it for. It seems like essentially want to like cast it, like I don't know, maybe like 100, like
So
90
here's the
feet up.
thing. Regardless, part of why I'm giving it advantage is to fill in that spot that, like, you know where you're casting it, you know where to expect it. So this casting is far more about where you expect it to be, not necessarily where you know it to be. Are you looking into the future as you cast this? Are you going to use a portent for its save?
I don't have a good portent to use for its saving throw.
Gotcha. So let me have Rashad roll 2d20 and Justin roll 8d. Or wait, roll your fireball.
But I may use some inspiration.
Gotcha. So it looks like it's doing a good job, at least avoiding. I'm not even sure how you would see that. But you have. Yeah, that's difficult to explain. Inspiration kind of breaks the game regardless.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna leave it at the straight roll.
Gotcha. And you're gonna hear that explosion above is Velixis doing anything.
Well, this is going to try to aim, and she's going to try and shoot a magic missile out at the creature.
What level magic missile?
Second level.
All right, let's see that roll. I think second level is 4d4. So you guys think that was enough?
I don't know. I mean, the rock's huge, so I imagine it's got, it's pretty healthy. So even when it's bloodied, it can probably take a lot of damage. But then I don't know. Then it was looking rough. Feline hit it. I hit it at least like I more cinched it. And I don't know. It's close. I feel like.
Ooh. I don't think I kept my math correct. I feel like building up to the point where I thought it would retreat, I might have kept with that number as if I was under 100 and then went for that number again for the kill instead of it's like 50% and its hit points. So I might have messed up the math. But when you cast that magic missile there, Rashad, what I knew that you had to do damage on was 14 damage. Do you know how much damage you did with the magic missile?
I'm sorry, I missed that last part. You said do 14 damage and then something else.
14 on the nose.
Yeah, I feel like in hindsight that I might have messed up the math. But coming into that before I had recognized that I might have messed up the math, which I have no way of looking back on to see, besides reviewing everything, you needed to do 14 damage. And as Don pointed out, you did exactly 14 damage with that magic missile. You all are going to see as the rotted corpse of this creature is going to fall down from above. At present, I want a dexterity saving throw from. We'll go everybody. Rashad has advantage here. Brennick, you have the choice of, do you want to give Fen a chance and kind of take a sacrifice for him? Or is Fen potentially just going to have creature and ice fall on top of him? You're the only one who can affect him, though. So this is your choice with what would Brennick do as things start to fall from above. First with like a large crack, and then you start to hear kind of the shattering and the sounds of more and more, as clearly more and more ice is kind of breaking away from it falling.
Yeah, I think normally Brannick would be very much like saving himself, but we're on this like desolate island, and Ben is kind of our survivalist, so Brannick's not sure how long he'd last without, and you know, took the time to save Fen, so doesn't want to have him crushed by falling ice immediately after that. So I think he will. I think he'll try to essentially kind of like throw Fen out of the way, um, and take the brunt himself.
Gotcha. Make a dexterity check for me, please, Brennick.
And if this is to get Fen out, I might use some inspiration here.
For what it's worth, this is a simple, like, random check here. This is just to flavor things. You don't have to use inspiration and know that you're succeeding here.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, this is purely just flavor for the fact of like a moment in your heroics kind of thing. Um, and in recognition that you guys are effectively about to get a long rest as well. Velixis, some ice and like shards of like this glass like rock from above are going to fall into you. Tiny little blades almost. 5 piercing damage to Velixis. Brennick, you can throw Fen out of the way here, taking a little bit more, as just as much you are like sheltering his body as you are moving him, and you will take 10 piercing damage. Valine as well is going to take a chunk of piercing damage here, but you guys will see as this bird's corpse eventually clatters to the ground. For what it is worth, this thing looks a lot like a chicken's carcass after a family has picked it clean. Imagine like a family of 10 who has a small, like 2-pound chicken to cook. This is what is left after your spells have wreaked it and thrown it out of the sky from above. You all have Fen outside of your shelter from the wind, this creature on hand, and at least a little bit of silence as the wind starts to swirl back around you all. What are the initial thoughts at this moment?
The Brannick is thinking, we should get Fen back in, back inside where it's a little more sheltered, like out of the wind, so that try to give him a bit of a safer, or not safer, but less dangerous. Yeah. Essentially, let him while he's recovering, try to like essentially drag him back into the somewhat sheltered area. Um, he is like kind of seeing what shape this body's in. He's not optimistic, but he's going to just kind of, he wants to check it over to see if he can scavenge like a feather. He got one from the Periton, and he's thinking, a rock feather could be a cool, if you turn it into a quill or something at some point. So might not be any left unburnt, but he's gonna, take a look.
Yeah, as far as things go here, Valine can certainly help you bring Fen's body in. She can almost cradle his body in a hand, I would assume, kind of right now, at very least, both hands. Uh, you can certainly find some nice feathers from the rock. I feel like at very least some of kind of the flight feathers from the end of its wings. As the blight would have been more primarily towards the center. I think you guys did a good job keeping your fireballs a little bit more towards the center. I see no reason that there are not plenty of feathers for you to gather here.
All right, yeah, so he'll grab up a couple.
Yeah, so you can certainly write down that you have a few rock feathers between quills and anything else that you might save them for. Flight feathers will certainly be a valuable asset. Any other thoughts in this moment?
Alexis is kind of just worried for a friend that hoping that he'll make it through.
I guess Brennick also wants to, like, after this fight and everything, we know some of the stone and ice fell. Like, can we take a look and see if it looks uh like it's going to be kind of like stable, or if it looks like it's still like maybe the fight or everything that's gone on, it's maybe we should move out of this area. Trying to check if it's
You don't really have any background in rocks or any sort of construction to give you like a better concept here.
no, it would have to be very obvious, like huge cracks in the in the ice and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I would say you could do perception. You have, oh wait, no, I was looking at Fen for a second there. You could do this as an investigation that'll take you some time to assess. You could do it as a nature, or you could do it as a perception. And also, are you doing this with light?
Yeah, once we're back in the kind of in the more sheltered area where you can actually light up a torch, he would do that. But I don't think he knows he's not an expert, so he's gonna more do like a cursory look, so he wouldn't do like a deep kind of like a long inspection. So I'll probably just do a perception.
Gotcha. So, from what you can see of the ice in this area, it doesn't seem to have like shattered off so much as it like shears off. There's definitely large pieces of kind of like visibly overhanging ice. And this is kind of like one of those things where it's just almost the recognition that the ice doesn't just grow in a single like sheet. It's kind of organic and alive. How it's always pushed forward is like the most outer part. And occasionally, if it doesn't have something above it and something hits that, it can shear off this almost like a bump in the ice. So, looking above you, there's certainly more things that could fall. Are they likely to? Probably not. It's probably more like the creature and heavy things from above make this wall more dangerous. Um, and this is kind of along those same ideas of you can go really close to a glacier, and that glacial wall has been there for hundreds of thousands of years. You only want to hang out there for 5 minutes and take some pictures. It doesn't change that it's super dangerous, but does probability say that it's going to fall while you're right there? And I think that's kind of where your assessment would take you. Um, with that high of a check, you're intelligent enough, I feel like, to kind of look at it and see. Chances are we're good, but it doesn't mean that could never happen.
Yeah. Yeah, how much bad luck? How much more bad luck could we have in a day, right? So yeah, he'll kind of be satisfied that the likelihood of this ice falling again, absent another something else attacking or something else going on above them is small, and with Fen, they don't want to he's unconscious right now, so they're not really going to get far if they try to find some other spot, and they're exhausted. It's been a very long day and night, so yeah, he's good with just kind of waiting here and trying to get through the rest of the night, and probably some of the next morning, to be honest. Well,
So if Brennick is good at present there, Felixis, you are good to go. We are going to Felixis's watch, I believe, on the morning. Fen, can you whisper me a D4? And Rashad, when you are good to go, can you roll a perception check for me?
Oh God, that's low.
Alrighty. Yeah, this watch is going to go by pretty seamlessly for you as you kind of hang by with the others. Are you watching with any sort of light, or are you just kind of hanging out in the snow and the darkness?
Mm, I think for her, she would have actually lit a torch. Since we took care of this creature, she would have actually went and lit a torch and would have been walking back and forth.
Gotcha. So like with the torch, if you want to keep it lit and on you, you're probably kind of walking in between the wall and like Brennick and Fen, kind of like that. Like you can kind of walk along that wall, maybe even more on kind of the northeastern face of it, to shelter it even more. But you can certainly walk with a bit of fire over there, pacing around, snow kind of whirling all about you. Everything kind of just fits like what this place has been. Eventually, you're going to notice that torch burning down, telling you that you've probably been here for about an hour and you have about another hour to go. Lighting another torch, and if so, another perception for me, please.
And after this torch went out, she kind of just left it and just continued walking in the dark.
Gotcha. Yeah, so I think on this one you'll see just a little bit more of the actual light show kind of around you, as the darkness kind of makes things a little bit more almost ethereal with how you're kind of seeing in this darkness. You can see a little bit past Valine, but there's otherwise kind of a wall of like a gray whiteness as the snow picks up, and occasionally you'll see different wisps that kind of give way to other things around you. At some point, you are going to start to notice that there seems to be unnatural lines in kind of the whiteness that you're seeing. And after a few moments of the snow kind of giving way in your vision, and you see where you were kind of seeing darkness for a little bit and like different darker shades of gray telling you you're looking out further into this tundra when the snow kind of breaks for the moment. Only now it's still a lot of white. You're getting some black and darkness kind of showing through, but this wall of snow, when it breaks, it starts to give you the impression that perhaps there's something else in between you and the darkness all around.
Mm. Uh, just to be safe, she kind of like she throws a firebolt out in the direction towards the shadow that she kind of saw, just to see if it'll make any kind of light in the air in that little speck of air that she could see if she could fully make out what it is.
That's not really what firebolt does, but you can throw a firebolt. So you can kind of like throw out this bolt of fire, and it's really just like a point of light. It is not really something that sheds light. If there's spells that you want to be able to create light for seeing things, there's other ways to work your magic that you can learn to kind of do that. What this can give you is that, yes, you do hit something.
So she kind of like takes a deep breath and goes, "Ah, crap." And she kind of she slowly works towards it. She begins to light it as she walks towards it. She starts to light another torch to kind of hold it up to see if she can make out what it is as she slowly approaches the shadow that's there.
Roll a perception check as you approach it with this torch. So as you approach, the light of this torch is kind of scattering larger distances before you're kind of seeing this wall of gray that's kind of melting across this little wall of wind that's dragging the snow down from the north. And as you kind of approach closer and closer, you start to feel the wind actually starting to pick up and kind of spin around your like right side of your body as you're stepping closer and closer to the edge of this alcove and how it deals with the fluid dynamics of this wind. And there's just going to be kind of an instant where you're just kind of walking towards this wall, and all of a sudden there's just going to be like a lull in the snow that kind of opens up between the gusts of wind. And I need you to make a wisdom saving throw. As you see inside of this lull, there is a massive eagle-like creature that is standing just above you. You are almost 2 feet from its beak as its head is reaching down to snap at you. And it is almost immediately apparent that this thing is solid, clear, blue Arctic ice, very much like a creature that you've seen before.
So, seeing this creature, Valixis actually thinks back to the statue that they passed by, and as the creature like snaps at her, she kind of jumps back from it, and doing so, she throws another fireball at where it's like snapped at in the direction from directly at it.
Another fireball.
No, bolt. Sorry, bolt.
Gotcha. This is not a creature snapping at you. This is a statue. That was part of what like that perception and the wisdom were. You're not necessarily like extra surprised from this. You can recognize that it's a statue almost immediately.
Oh, okay.
Especially since you got so close and because you were carrying the light, you can actually see the blue of the ice. So a little stumble. You like start to conjure your fire bolts for sure. That's definitely not problematic, but you already have kind of like figured out what this thing is. What is your next thought as you are kind of face to face with this statue that was not here before?
That kind of actually is her initial thought. She's wondering how this statue got here, and she starts to look around to see if there's any others nearby. And she starts to like walk side to side to see if there's any others and around a little bit like behind the statue and around the air.
Gotcha. You are not unaware that walking around in a blizzard alone is dangerous. Are you just walking like to the right and going on? Are you just walking to the left and going on? Are you trying to walk like a little bit to the right and then go back to the left? What and where are you walking?
Yeah, that last one. She's walking a little bit to the right and then back to the left to see if she spots if there's any other statues like right beside it or nearby.
Gotcha. You can roll a. You can do an investigation here. Are you there? Can you roll an investigation? Excellent. So after about like 5 or 10 minutes of this kind of movement, back and forth, trying to stay close enough to the stillness of the air, but also approaching kind of this edge of the void where you've actually seen this creature, taking the time to kind of pace back and forth and eventually leaving different markers and kind of like tying different pieces of your rope to it to kind of keep yourself in order here. And after about 15 or so minutes, you're going to come to the realization there's nothing around this creature, around this ice sculpture. You've walked over where you all killed that bird, and there's not even a body there.
Okay, so what she's actually gonna do is now she's gonna actually go back to the camp and she's gonna wake Brannick and inform him of what it is. Because now she's thinking she wants to touch the statue just to see what happens. But in the event something does, she wants someone else there, so she does go back to wake Brannick.
Gotcha. So, assuming that you are sharing everything with Brennick, is there anything that you don't want to tell him? Otherwise, how does Brennick react?
So Brannick will he'll come to kind of groggily. He'll immediately be kind of concerned, but then as Velix is um, telling him what she saw, he'll kind of he'll get curious. Again, recalling the statue they'd seen earlier, and does Elixis say that she doesn't see the body of the rock anymore?
Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what I mean. Unless he says something in particular that he's not going to share with you, assume that you get that whole recap.
yeah. She shared everything.
Gotcha. Yeah. So Brannick is. So now he wants to see this thing for himself. He's like, he'll kind of like look back at you know, towards Fen and Valine, but and then he'll kind of look towards Velixis. Can you take me to it? Show me this statue.
Yes, definitely. It's down over this way, and she just starts to lead Brannick to where the statue was.
So you can walk out to that same area. What are you looking for?
I guess does this statue appear to be a statue that looks like um what the rock might have looked like earlier?
Roll a perception check for me. Yeah, looking over this creature, it seems to kind of match the physical characteristics that in that like 30 seconds of such a heated battle that you can recall, this seems to be the same kind of bird, if not the same bird made out of a statue of ice.
Yeah, because Burning's thinking, okay, the rock's body disappeared. Maybe, and we know it's Oral's kind of pet. So, like to Valixis, perhaps Oral wanted to moralize her pet. Perhaps this is the same creature. Certainly, its a sudden appearance certainly seems odd.
It might be, but this isn't the first statue we saw, and I'm kind of curious as to more about it. And I want to like investigate it closer, but I wanted someone else to hear. And she removes her bags, and she takes out spell book and holds it in one hand. And she flips her affection to like the thing she had on her down on the ground. She kind of like walks up to the statue, and she places her hand on the statue to see what happens.
You could probably reach like the beak, or you could go towards like its legs and kind of like its claws. Um, Maybe towards one of like points of the flight feathers of its wings, and perhaps towards its tail. What do you think you are reaching out towards? The beak? I feel like that kind of makes the most sense if you're just going to the closest.
Yeah, the beat, the closest part that Valixis is able to reach.
So this creature's face is probably like say like 15 or 20% beak. It is definitely like a quickly turning over kind of sharp beak. That's part of why I feel like it is a raptor, is that it has like a flesh rending beak, and they're both kind of very short. You can kind of tell that it has like a very strong kind of like grasp with this thing, but putting your hand up against the beak, you'll feels very smooth. There's certainly a few like ridges that kind of like make up the almost imperfections of like the side of the beak, but like especially towards like the front arc of how it curves down, extremely smooth. Um, Maybe almost a little bit slick as you touch it.
Okay, after touching it and realizing this, and nothing too bad happening, she kind of takes a deep breath, and she goes back and picks up her things. Oh, okay, it doesn't look like anything too off about it, other than its unusual movements. Yes, I mean I'm not too artsy, so I wouldn't know about art, but still weird that it showed up here after the battle. Yes, we could just leave it be, but it's still. I might leave a. Should I leave a torch by it just in case, just for us to keep an eye on it?
If you can uh, keep an eye out for about 10 minutes or so, I might be able to at least get a sense whether there's anything sort of magical emanations coming from it.
Oh yeah, I can definitely keep an eye out for you for about 10 minutes, however long you need.
And so Brannick would like to start ritually casting detect magic.
Gotcha. So while you are casting, at some point during that, Fen, you are going to wake up effectively with 1 hit point. You still need some meditation time, but it's kind of up to you if you would like to interact with Velixis, as Brennick is in the process of casting a spell kind of just at the edge of sight. Valine is still next to you. Velixis is down in that area as well. But you are kind of coming to in this little like alcove of respite that you guys have. What sort of thoughts do you have when you first come to consciousness? Are you like pulled right into my mind is mush, I need to meditate, or do you have questions before you kind of fall into that exhaustion?
Well, I think the first thing that Fen is gonna think when he wakes up is how the hell did we survive that? And then after Velixis relays all that information, he'll listen and then quietly for a second, and I'm gonna vow to eat chicken whenever I can for the rest of my life. Kind of.
I would like to order all of the bird that you have. Yeah, we've got a couple of chickens. Which one do you want? No, you misheard me. I said all of it.
Give me 2 whole chickens and some white toast. And yeah, after hearing the regalia, we'll definitely take some time to interact with Brannick and offer his extreme gratitude and thanks for saving his life after he's done with the
Yeah,
detect magic.
I'm sure you could kind of get the recapping from the two of them. Velixis, does this sound good like what you are doing while Brennick is casting?
Yes.
Gotcha. So effectively, while the three are kind of cutting it up a little bit inside of this, while Brennick is off towards the edge, Brennick, you can finish casting. You said detect magic.
Right. Yep. Kind of on the statue. Like with the idea of trying to sense if there's anything magical about it.
I think you probably don't have a lot to glean from detect magic. I think what you can pull out of it is not necessarily like an aura of a magical school, so much as kind of a confirmation that this is an abnormal creation. Um, and I think that kind of falls into this idea that there are magical traces you can see an interaction with the weave, but you can't necessarily make anything out of that. Um, Let me get an Arcana check from you, please, Brennan. I think this is going to be where your mind might come in contact with the fact that if a divine being is using the weave, perhaps it doesn't look the same way as when you manipulate it with spell work. So I think this is a pretty solid confirmation that this is the work of Arl. And probably at best puts you all along the idea that this is something like adjacent to Oh man. Conjugation comes to mind, and that is a word about grammar. Um, this is like adjacent to like the creative school of magic. I'm trying to think of the one that lets you like turn things from one to another substance.
Oh, transmutation.
Yeah. So this is like transmutation adjacent. Um, I think part of what you'll recognize is that with snow, this creature, the Frost Maiden, can make snow, can make ice. This is so perfectly sculpted because it is made to look like that. Nothing is like carved; it is created this way. And I think that kind of satisfies what you're looking for.
Yeah, and that was kind of his suspicion. Um, uh, yeah, so I think that even though he can't, it's not kind of the magic that he's familiar with would use. It's enough to kind of confirm or support his kind of suspicion. So he would return, to the others and relay all of that information to them. So probably also means that Earl definitely really knows we're here. Glad to see you're up, Fen.
Yes, obviously she was here. Begs to wonder, though, if she meant us ill intent, she wouldn't have had a better opportunity to do it. Why waste time with the magic?
Maybe she doesn't see the threat. That being said, does that mean we can stop with all the sneaky sneak? We could just go instead of trying to sneak quietly through.
Once, I think we should probably continue our immediate search for Nos and this uh, item that he took.
Yeah, that may be a good idea.
Fen will be siding with Brannick from the near future. Feels like almost obligated. You have a life debt.
Gotcha. As you all kind of fill the next few hours of the meditation of Ben, are there any thoughts as to what you all would be kind of doing in this time? Otherwise, we'll kind of fast forward beyond.
Yeah, I think Brannick might be trying to catch a little bit more rest while Fen's meditating, but yeah, other than that, just kind of trying to take it easy and yeah.
Places would want back to her watch and looking out towards where the statue was. Occasionally, just checking just to make sure nothing else weird happens over there.
Gotcha. You all can benefit from your long rest here. You all should have your 10 hit points from Lathander as you are gifted your blessing from above. We are back out on the big map. Effectively, you guys are a little bit late in the morning. You otherwise have the rise of the colored aurora shedding light. Coming from the east, you guys are going to be one of those first areas that starts to get the scattered dim light. That is effectively when you have Brennick kind of taking his like dive in for another nap. We've got Fen meditating. Velixis and Valine kind of still keeping up and cutting it up. But when we pick up here with you all, um, still blizzard all about, you're still protected in this little alcove. You've been heading to kind of the southwest here along the edge of this ice cliff. You have identified at least another one of these little like archipelagos that kind of reach out into the icy sea of moving ice. But what do you all have in mind as you start this? I think we are on the 30th day of Myrtle here on the night of the new moon day.
Well, I think we're still trying to find the item, so we'll continue western and follow the cliff face again, I suppose.
You are still planning to go after Professor Nass? The orb that was stolen from me?
If Oral wanted us in her sights, she had us. So I see no reason to rush for her. I will follow.
I agree. From what you told us of this item, it could certainly prove useful. So I see no reason not to stay the course.
Agreed. There's no point rushing into a battle. She already knows we're here, and she obviously didn't see the threat. So if this item will help, we should definitely find it. Though, when y'all did arrive the first time, he arrived ahead of y'all. Did he not leave a notification, a note, or anything with anyone, and for which direction he would be traveling once he arrived here? That may help if he left any kind of clues with you.
Nass Lantimer came here after having stolen a family heirloom of mine. Brennick, let me have you roll a intelligence saving throw. You are going to hear the voice of Zan in your head, almost like sarcastically talking about. He said before how she's like a hack and she's kind of a fake, and you're just going to hear this kind of voice in your head, like, as her Professor Orb is the culmination of much of her family's knowledge. That's how she skates by with so little skill. If you are prepared to set off, um, will you lead us? Do you want me to follow? And she'll kind of look towards Sven to see if you were leading the party as you all headed off. And then she'll kind of look towards the other as she says, do you want me to follow?
Yeah, we should the usual with myself in the lead, Brannick, Felixus, and then you bringing up the rear.
If you would, please roll a survival for me. So yeah, you kind of take yourself a little back um, to reach back towards the coast and almost double back, perhaps a little bit more than you have to find yourself back to where you want to be with the ice to your left. And after a few moments here, you can start to see that there is indeed another peninsula kind of ahead of you that is extending out to the southwest. And that tells you that you could also go almost directly west and probably find like a similar peninsula there as well. Where do you kind of want to go with your exploration from that idea? If you're kind of back to the water, you have peninsula ahead that you can kind of follow along this route, or you can try to go like directly west and kind of be between two different peninsulas.
Well, we might as well make a complete exploration of it, and if there were any other signs, they'd probably be by the shoreline.
Rennick would agree with that approach.
So it doesn't take long with this exploration to find that this is a very short peninsula, only about, I mean, it's still like 400 feet down, but you can almost always see the ice on the other side of it. And after probably about an hour or so, maybe a little bit longer, you all can find yourselves kind of return to a similar situation where you have a solid idea that you have a peninsula to the southwest of you, and that you could move straight ahead to the northwest and find yourself again between two peninsulas.
Stick to the coast, Fen, do you think?
Yeah, at this point, I mean, Fenn never met a piece of new ground that he didn't want to trot upon.
Gotcha. Go for a survival on this one.
Well,
What were you going for there, Felixus?
I was gonna say, well, let's complain a little bit. Like, it feels like we're just walking in circles up with all these edges and with all these edges that we've been coming into. Are we gonna, as you started to plan that, are we gonna ever actually even run into a town, or is it just a big old hunk of snow in the middle of this ocean?
Well, in my experience, you never know what's around the corner.
So at some point, I think Valine will at least address the idea that we really are floating around. You probably don't have really good chances of meeting anybody here unless they're wild creatures. And she'll probably just kind of in passing, like, doesn't really want to break it to you, but at the same time, kind of wants you to start hedging your bets. Where it's just like, I am very sorry to tell you, but for many people who travel by the water, they all fear this island. It destroys ships. While you all are otherwise following along with, again, the ice always to your left, walking vaguely southwest, you spot one time where you kind of go off on a little splashing area where you're almost just walking straight along this like wall of ice that reaches up through this area, or this little cove, before kind of coming to the end of that. That ice there is still, I think that's about like 400 or so feet of like walking before you come to the conclusion that it's just a little peninsula to nowhere. And eventually you are going to come back around after finding another of these, a boat that is within view. It is some 100 feet off from the coast, but at some point you are going to see this ship that is kind of almost like in the slush. You can kind of see like the ice is almost cold enough to hold where it has the boat, but it's still kind of like a slush of ice that kind of moves with each little like lap of the water as waves come in. And that boat's just kind of visible like over a few moments, here and there, while you're kind of walking along that almost like south side, kind of like south to west there and to the north. Any thoughts while you all are seeing this boat? You're otherwise kind of coming to the end of this peninsula where that boat will be in view.
Fen will think to himself, well, perhaps they're right, and suggest that they make a inward trek. There doesn't seem to be much happening on the coastline.
Can't be too many people trying to get to this island. That could be just, Professor Nass's ship. And is it it's not like solid like ice and snow leading out to it, right? It's actually off in the water.
Yeah. So like the edge of the actual white is the edge of what you guys can effectively walk on. There's certainly like levels of this like slushy, like in between phased water on those shores as well. But you can kind of see like that's kind of the in between is, well, you guys have seen other boats here. I think you're probably going to find like 50% of these show signs of being giant boats, and probably 50% of these are signs of being pretty normal sized. At this point, it's kind of just a recognition that you're like, there's crashed ships all around this island.
Gotcha. I for one think should, we haven't found much yet aside from the rock, but I think it might be a good idea to stick to our plan. To sketch the coastline, and then from there we can make our way inland. Presume if Professor this Nas did get here by ship or boat, perhaps we'll find some evidence somewhere along the coastline. Perhaps we just haven't stumbled upon the right spot yet.
Um, Make a perception check for me, please. I think at a +6. Gotcha. So 14. Um, yeah, my bad. That doesn't actually take. I'm sorry. I got distracted there. I think Valine's going to kind of like look out to the boat at sea and see just like the name of like Little Princess or some such across like the keel of the boat. And then just kind of scatterbrained. But would which boat would she have come? I'm not sure what we're searching for. I recognize I completely changed my accent. I believe we are simply searching for signs of her. And the more ordered the search is, perhaps the more likely we are to find her. And if we don't find her, and we eventually look to Oral and the codicil, perhaps we might find Nass there as well. But I think she'll kind of look back towards all of you with that kind of like question too. The ordered search. You thought it was best before we've started it.
Agreed, then. We'll continue with our current course of action. Come, Valixis. We will give you a new nickname. Many Strides.
What?
Let me get another survival from you. So, over the next few hours of this walk, you all are going to close off this larger peninsula that you've been on here with this go. As you come towards the north of it and start to see those initial signs of the cliff faces off to the east of you, and at least that initial sign that that castle still looms and the scourge still kind of looks down at you inside of these snows. You all are going to come into a area where you probably can't see anything outside of maybe 10 or so feet beyond you at any given point here. But you're going to start to walk into a point where Fen will see the first of these statues, and it again is going to be this statue of ice. And it seems to be right back into this like lightly glowing blue ice that's just perfectly clear. And this time you're very quickly going to see this is like a field of statues. Some of these creatures are humanoids, your size. Some of these people are, or some of these creatures are tiny creatures that are the size of Elixis. Some things are like giants that are frozen almost like in the moment of battle. Almost all of them are in like the throes of adrenaline. None of these are like calm, like standing still and kind of like holding a regal pose. What sort of thoughts do y'all have as you're like walking between these?
Renix thinking if these are similar to the statue of the rock, and perhaps these are essentially like recreations or memories of things that were came to the island that were perhaps Oral is lonely, or perhaps it's just some odd deific taxidermy.
It looks like she wants you to see her trophy case. That's why she left it out. Rather impressive.
You all are probably getting later into this day of traveling around here. You could push forward for a bit longer and find refuge like in the utter darkness of the new moon. You can start to move towards making to like the east and the actual cliff faces if you wanted to shelter the same way like last time. What kind of thoughts do you all have on like the last excursion? Like it could take you off for a quick little peninsula. It could be like a massive long peninsula. um, what sort of thoughts do you all have as to what you would do towards the end of this day?
Brannick would suggest, maybe we use what's remaining of the light before it gets real dark to try and maybe see if we can find another kind of nook to shelter in, maybe along the cliffs.
Maybe. It'd definitely be helpful if we could find one. I want to get trapped again, however, and have nothing thrown at me, especially onto me. It suck to die like that.
And I suppose we could perhaps find a place among these statues. It's eerie, but some of the bigger ones might serve to block some of the worst of the wind.
I agree. Let's push on unless we come across an obvious prime resting spot.
All right, so wait, does that sound good to Brennick? Does it sound good to you if we push on and look for something while we are going?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, yeah, Brannick will, in terms of like, yeah, Brannick's pretty differential to Fen in terms of he's much more the outdoorsy type Fen is. So Brannick will doesn't have any strong objections, so he'll agree with Fen's approach.
Gotcha. Let me get another survival from you, Finn. Alrighty. As you all push forward here and are following this coast, mostly northish, sometimes heading off towards the west, still always keeping the ice to your left and kind of pushing off beyond this like statue garden of these ice sculptures. Hints of the view of the mountain to the east of you. You guys are going to be in a position where you can see the peninsula heading almost directly to the west. If you kept the ice to your left, you could follow it off and head off into the west from where you are. Looking directly to the east, there's kind of a big slope down, and you can see some sort of walled area that seems to have um, I'd say like it seems to have people out and about. You kind of see this walled thing from about the edges of your actual view. At first, kind of breaks in the snow, giving you like 60, 70 feet view to this area. And it tells you it's people, tells you they're inside of walls, but there's not much else to see beyond that. And almost back behind you to kind of the northeast, you can see still more of the cliff occasionally kind of break this snow wall. What would you all think as you come into contact with these 3 bits of information?
Well, if there's any information to be had, strange seeing any person on this barren land. Perhaps it's worth investigating.
Yeah, Brannick agrees we should investigate. He would caution we should be wary. These could be, though those nice winter servo, these may be some of those, so we should be cautious. But agree it's worth a look.
So maybe move slower and go stealthily? Or just appreciate the stealth that the snow gives you?
You're not sure how much like how additionally stealthy we can be, aside from like kind of using the elements to trying to use the elements to our advantage, but that would be kind of Brannick's suggestion. Maybe at least like moving slowly.
Well, what I mean is, you guys right now, when you're in constant blizzards, being stealthy often is simply saying, "Hey, nobody yell at full volume. Nobody explode stuff right off of the bat here." I feel like that's being like simply going with the elements. You could walk by somebody like 10 feet away in this place, and if neither of you yells at the person you noticed, they might not notice you. But at the same time, if you guys, hunch down and you're crawling, actually being stealthy, most nobody would ever notice you unless they're specifically looking for you. That's still where like the stealth check comes in. My point is like you can walk up to this place and walk away from it, and nobody might notice you. But if you guys were stealthy, you pretty much know you can walk up to it and get away from it.
And Fen, hearing Brannick's reservations, well, yeah, perhaps it's good if we just have a listen and before we expose ourselves.
I think that's wise. Yes.
Brennick and Fen are stealthful.
Yeah. Brannick will try and move stealthily. Yep.
Yeah, if I can have the 2 of you make this check with advantage, please. Just a stealth.
Ooh, that's wrong.
My bad, Rashad. I heard that, but I was biting into an apple, so I didn't hear anything you said.
Oh, I was just saying, nice roll.
Oh, cool. I didn't even notice that Fen rolled. That was the 10 and 11.
Yeah. Once again, Brannick, as I stumble, catches me before I fall.
That's how to do it. That's teamwork. So as you all are moving up to this place, this is the kind of thing where Brennick's able to kind of like pick out the flow of the wind and kind of follow that so your footprints are being kind of wiped clean behind you as quick as possible and kind of like intelligently picking apart how to kind of approach this. You all could see like some of the general direction where most people are facing inside of this thing, so you're kind of moving in a different way like that, trying to keep from their back as you're kind of flanking them. But after a short while of approaching this and giving yourselves, if you want to get up to the wall to where you are, like wall and a blizzard, and you can kind of peek over the wall to look in at them, that's where I feel like you would probably come up to. if you want to then follow it for like a break in the wall, that would kind of be the next step. If that sounds good, go ahead. What were you thinking?
Yeah, Bernick is thinking maybe we try and sneak and try to find an opening. Obviously we can reassess if we see any, so it's like there's any like patrols or anything, but he'll see what Fen thinks and Felixus.
Yeah, don't want to try coming up with a wall and then someone comes around and spots us.
Onward.
Let me get another stealth roll from the two of you, both advantage. And this is effectively, you guys are leading the group with this. Yeah, so as you guys kind of wind around this, keeping the wall to your side and keeping the winds to your back, you can eventually come around. You are going to find, which way do you think you would go? If you came up to it on your right side, would you want to go like in the direction you've been going, keep it on your right and go forward? Or do you think you would go kind of to the east and like turn around and go back and north? What do you think you're doing here?
I think probably kind of continue in like a clockwise direction, like the way we've been going.
Works for me.
Gotcha. So as you kind of follow along, you are eventually going to be kind of looking back and into this area from the west, and you are looking off to the east, kind of the wind blowing through. You're going to notice for the first time that these creatures, whatever this is in front of you, everything is standing still. Let's go for a perception check. If you have perception, I think Fen, give it to me with advantage here. Sorry, Felixus, if I can get a perception from you as well, please.
I clicked it. I'm not sure why it's not popping up.
So coming around this corner, it's going to be pretty quick recognition that there's more statues in here. Some of these pieces look to be blue. Most of them appear to be white. Some of these seem to be kind of standing on their own. Some of them are almost like constructed into the ice below them. You can see almost shards like stalagmites coming out of the snow and like growing through somebody's leg in kind of this, again, like endorphin rich like moments of battle, and this creature's leg is like being consumed by the snow coming up through the ice, and then another one like that. Some they kind of like vary, but most of these here um look to be white statues. What is everybody kind of thinking as you have this image before you of more of these ice sculptures, but different?
Are the walls also made of ice, or are they of stone?
If you want to take some time to look into it, I'll put it to a roll. If you just take a moment to look at it, I think it is so thick with ice that it is hard to tell whether that there was ever a wall to begin with or whether this is simply a creation of ice. But the walls are not clear blue ice. These as well are kind of like a hazy sort of white ice that is essentially opaque.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I don't think he wouldn't take the time to do a thorough investigation. Just wondering if this whole thing was essentially constructed, or if this was an actual settlement at some point that got turned into something. But difficult to tell here. But he's curious about
You could
the.
give me um ooh, I feel like that's maybe like you could do history. You've got insight if you wanted to. Those could be quicker reactions to it than like getting really deep into discovering.
Yeah, maybe I'll do an insight because I don't think he would have any historical knowledge of the island itself. So.
Yeah, that's just as much like looking over the people to see if there's anything that kind of makes sense here as well.
Oh yeah.
That's
Okay.
what
Yeah.
that's why I feel like if you chose it, which you didn't, but kind of looking into it, insight into what you can probably pick up is these are there's many different ways of approaching death in front of you. Some of these creatures are doing it with valor. Some of them are like fighting with everything that they have, but you can still see like fear deep in their eyes. Some of these creatures are even almost in a momentary state of kind of calm. And you can see like some of these are like the ones that stand out almost the most, where you see a creature seems to be calm. Yeah, I think with that, you would notice that every single one that seems calm is one of the ones where the ice is actually growing through the creature. And it looks like it's being consumed by the ground as this like ice stalagmite grows up through, the base wherever it's contacting the snow. And it almost has like this platform that it kind of exists on where this like shard of ice grew up 10 feet in front of this human who just seems to be kind of like silently holding like a monk's pose with two different sutras on his hands, and you can see as his lower torso is like torn apart by the ice and his face is just like stern. And I think that's probably the big takeaway here. You see a lot of different ways of approaching death, and that's part of what you would pick up. That all of these creatures, it's not simply adrenaline. These are moments of death in front of you. Um, and the ones that kind of jump out the most is those that are approaching death with calm are all consumed by the ice. Not all of the creatures that are consumed by the ice, though, are calm.
Hmm.
Kind of silently whisper, mumbles under her breath, we're gonna end up finding her friend frozen solid. I just know it.
You mean Mass? The friend? I don't think they're friends.
I don't know why I said friend, but yeah, Nas. I had a different thought in my mind pop at the same time, but yeah, Billy's kind of mumbles under her breath, we're gonna find Nas frozen solid.
With a wry smile, Valine will kind of look over between Brennick and Felixus. And, Friends in the Arcane Brotherhood are something different than perhaps we share. Friends you keep close, hoping to never find they're your enemy. Nass very quickly showed her true colors. It would be convenient if we could find her here.
Brennick definitely keeps his friends close. Don't you, Brennick?
Of course. Perhaps we should take advantage of these walls for the perhaps in the morning, or if there's enough time, we can take a look and see if Feline, you can see if any of these look like they might be Ness, if we can investigate them more thoroughly. Might have to wait.
Well, I guess it probably would be nice to find Nass here. It might also be troubling because if he is frozen, if Nass is frozen, then the object that's on Nass is probably gone.
Also curious about this differences in the some of these seem to be same bluish ice with rock in the other sculpture we saw, and some of them look. And it's like do the ones that are kind of more whitish almost look like are they just as kind of like detailed, or do they look like they're maybe like cruder or less carefully sculpted, or I don't know, maybe they're just newer. Haven't had time to.
Let me have Brennick and Velixis roll investigations, please. Brennick, you can have advantage. Looking through these creatures, you all are going to have 10, 20 minutes as everybody's kind of going around looking for Nass. Before it starts to dawn on the two of you, probably coming to Velixis a little bit sooner. Perhaps Velixis is going to approach Brennick, and he'll almost be like, "Oh yeah, I was thinking about this. We should pursue that, whatever it ends up coming to." But Velixis and Brennick, you're noticing beyond lifelike realism in the statue. You're seeing imperfections perfectly in the statue. Seeing things like a satchel that has a tear in it and it's sewn, but it's perfectly redone in the ice. That's a repaired bag, perfectly displayed. And this is going to be like over and over again where you notice like a creature with its sword like drawn reaching out towards you from this ice, and you'll see the sword shows signs of previous battles. It has notches in it. That's not an archetypical representation of sword. That is a sword. These are creatures represented in ice, but it's as if ice became what they once were.
Perhaps
Every Go ahead.
Oh, yeah, and Brannick, I wanted like yeah, like once Felixus kind of brings it up at first, and Brannick like notices it after kind of it being pointed out, he's thinking again about these ones that look calmer, like perhaps they whatever happened, they welcomed it or brought it about, even.
Maybe, but Phyllis kind of just looks around. What happened if we crack one open?
Seems, as far as I can tell, to be solid ice.
Yeah, it does look like that, but is it really? Because we killed when we killed the bird, it popped up as a ice statue. So I'm curious if this is gonna sound so disturbing and morbid. If the bodies are still inside to some degree.
These aren't necessarily any larger than like the bodies. If you found a kobold on this in this area, it would be your size. Like it's not like at scale.
Didn't you say that some of them were made out of more snow than ice?
Yes, there are more in this area. Most of these creatures are like white opaque ice, not like the glacial blue of the creatures that you guys have seen. Right now, you've seen a troll and you've seen a rock in that like glacial blue. Oh wait, no, you guys just walked through the second sculpture garden. So yeah, you've seen like a bunch of these creatures in glacial blue, clear ice. These creatures are all like white, opaque ice. I think with those investigations, it would be satisfactory to recognize that the blue ice is unique to the ones where the ice has grown up through a creature. So there's still like a difference almost between the blue ice and the white ice, is what you guys can come across here.
Perhaps Oral saves the blue ice for the ones she favors or who have pleased her in some way. The others are simply, I don't know, but must mean something, the difference.
Out of all the white uh, ice ones, Fen will walk around to look for the best sword represented.
Yeah, you can find somebody who has your definition of the best sword or something close to that.
Any any way to break the hands off to free the sword intact?
Roll a investigation for me. Oh yeah, you could easily with like a quick little like focus of your key be able to separate the sword from the grip of this hand.
Well, what do you think? You want to break something, Felixus? Any thoughts, Brannick?
I'm not sure how useful it would be, but sure it would. Any terrible repercussions either. One would hope.
Are you there, Rashad? Did we lose him to the heat?
Okay, can you hear me?
Now we can. Do you have any thoughts as to Fen being about to break this? Or was Fen asking?
Well, he had the thought, and then he thought, well, maybe it's not a good idea to impetuously do it. And then remembering that Velixis had mentioned it, went to her first, and then Brannick.
Gotcha. I just watched the Goonies, so I thought for a second, like, are you inviting Rashad or Velixis to come break it?
I was going to give her the option because she did mention it first.
Ooh, yes, she silently goes, yes, let me break it.
So what are you thinking of doing, Velixis? You're going to run up to the statue and
She's gonna look around and pick up either a stone, a large stone that she can see, and she's just gonna whack it over the head or over the chest, whichever point she can reach on the statue.
you can grab like ice, but there's not stones around here. Otherwise, it has to be something you're carrying. I don't think anybody has stones with them.
Oh yeah, then she just picks up a large piece of ice and just kind of whacks it over the head or chest, whichever point of the ice sculpture that she can reach.
Gotcha. So yeah, like if you're going for like the ankles, that's probably one thing. Are you going for a different statue than the one that Fen is at? Do you want to go at another kobold where you're same size?
Yeah, she'll opt to go for cobalt.
Gotcha. Are you gonna grab a chunk of ice that is what size are you looking for? How big of a chunk of ice? Like the size of you? Something that's like 5 pounds, 1 pound?
Yeah, about 5 pounds, at least like either the size of a cobalt's head or half the size. So yeah, around that size.
Gotcha. You find something probably about like 8 or so pounds by the time you lift it up, and by the time Ben is finished saying, "What about you?" You're like rushing towards this kobold, and you're just going to make a improvised attack here. Just roll a d20 as you're basically attacking it in close combat. Certainly a hit there. Roll a d8 for me. So, as this chunk of ice, that's probably about like a third of the size of Felixus, just kind of like used like a overhead javelin slash battering ram right into this other little kobold who's sitting there just like consumed in the ice, holding like his hands together in a sort of like calming prayer. And as Velixis smashes into this creature with the ice, you're just going to see as that little like 5 pound thing of ice that was a little bit heavy disintegrates. And as this little, like, artificial snow starts to calmly fall, you're going to see parts of the kobold still exist, but otherwise most of the ice is disintegrated, and little more than that blue ice coming up from the ground remains from this creature. And what does remain of the kobold is just like the white ice, kind of between areas of the blue.
Feel better, Velixus?
Definitely.
So Fen wants to lean in and take a closer look at the sword at the one that he's at. Does it look like an actual sword, or is it all transformed into ice at this point?
Roll a perception. From what you can see, this sword appears to be ice, just like all of these other things appear to be ice in the form of their humans or their humanoids, um, or really their creatures. So it's hard to say that there's a sword there to be taken so much as there was once a sword in that creature's hand.
Then I'll leave it alone and agree with Brannick. This is probably a good place as any to lay our heads for the night.
I say you take it. I mean, it's not like they can use it anymore, and hey, it might be nice to have a sword made out of ice.
Bit impractical, perhaps, to wield.
I think I would shatter it trying to loosen it from the hands that are gripping it. I no longer think they are different things. I think it's all one now.
I wonder. I don't know much about how the gods work, but if these were once creatures turned to ice, I wonder if one as powerful as Oral or the god could reverse it.
Probably, but I mean, it's not like they're using it anyways anymore, and there's only one way to find out. I mean, if it shatters, if you try to remove it, then hey, I guess you can't use it. But if it stays intact, then hey, you got a spare sword made out of ice. Probably.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't think Oral is afraid of ice.
Well, it kind of nudges you towards it, trying to get you to still pull the sword to see if it'll come loose.
If it were an ice chicken, perhaps for Lexus, but I'm not in the mood.
Fine. She just walks away disappointed.
Beline's gonna poke the same thing just like one more time, kind of having been like listening to this conversation and kind of looking down at you from inside of the wind almost above. She's just going to kind of like reach out an arm to this creature and almost like leaning her arm on its arm, like, they are not using these. If you desired it, this would be the time. especially if something were to happen.
Well, when you put it like that, nothing ventured, nothing gained. I'll try to strike it to remove it.
Gotcha. Yeah. What? Like, let's go for acrobatics on medicine. What is your acrobatics bonus?
+7.
And I don't know why this is thinking wrong. Just do an acrobatics for me. But this is effectively an acrobatics medicine check. Like, this is a key. I feel like acrobatics is your best skill, right?
Yeah, that and stealth.
But stealth is +7 as well.
Yeah, stealth,
Okay, yeah.
survival, perception.
Um, yeah, so I think you can tap uh, parts of this creature's hand are going to shatter. The sword is going to separate. Much of the hilt is intact. There are signs that the hilt has been damaged, and there are signs that, like, this creature's hand are kind of still frozen to the hilt. But the sword comes away pretty cleanly as far as the sword goes.
I've got an ice sword.
So I think I'll make something up for that. You guys are approaching nighttime, so the idea that you are going to attune to that is going to happen pretty soon here. But I'll probably make that something along the lines of a +1 sword that you can choose what kind of sword it is. But a +1 sword that deals cold damage, and it has a chance of shattering every time you use it. So that will be one of those things where if you feel like you need to really do some magical ice damage, you've got the sword. But every time you go to use it, you're gonna worry on some level that it might be for the last time.
Gotcha.
But I think that's what we'll do for that. As far as watch goes, does it sound good that everybody is going to delve into their watches?
Uh,
Sorry, go ahead, Rashad.
yeah, but Alexis offers to take the first watch, unless someone else wanted to.
No, go for it. Branett can take the second watch.
Let me get a group of perceptions here from Uh, Valixis, are you doing light? Are you just walking around in darkness? Are you just kind of sitting still in darkness? What kind of thoughts do you have?
Alexis is actually, she does have a light. She has a little torch, and now she's kind of walking around in the room, just basically, checking the area, the statues, just occasionally just looking around the entirety of the area, but she is constantly moving throughout her entire watch.
Gotcha, just taking a second look across the creatures just as you're walking around.
Pretty much.
So when you are ready, let me get a perception. Oh, that's that. Okay. Yeah. So you walk around, see a pretty good survey of all of these creatures here. Probably towards the end of that torch, you'll probably come to a pretty solid conclusion that there's like either 24 or 27 of these creatures in this like small little area here immediately around you. But you're pretty sure it's right under on the underside of 30.
All right. While she was walking, did she notice anything off about some of them aside from what we previously noticed?
What do you mean? What are you trying to get at? If you're not on watch, I can have you do another roll. But that's part of why I was saying you're taking like just second glances at things. You're not really looking into them. This is more of like almost like paranoid, making sure the statues aren't moving in the night or in the darkness. What were you actually thinking? Because that might not be you doing a perception check like on watch.
Oh, okay, yeah, like basically what you just said. If something changed with any of the statues while I was checking over them, like did something like move on it or anything like that? Like, did you,
No, nothing big like that's going to tell you that kind of thing. Um, that would end up falling like into the typical kind of check, and that's part of what I explained. Like most of what you're going to experience here is just walking around.
all right, then yeah, that's after checking over the statue, she goes back and continues to just check the area around to where everyone is sleeping, making sure that nothing is approaching us.
Gotcha. And that'll be the second hour is doing that same kind of thing of making sure everybody's safe. Another perception check. Yeah, so the winds are gonna kind of swirl around and inside of this structure. And for like this watch, you're going to end up having it feel next to impossible to keep the torch lit. The winds are whirling around you that you can see the others are like shuffling in their sleep, but they're not waking up. But it is one of those things where, like, for the weird moments, the winds go from like more northerly to a little bit more like westerly winds, and they're blowing right through this structure. Other than that, like weird kind of um, switch in the weather, there doesn't seem to be anything else going on. You struggle with the fire, but in the silence and in the complete darkness of the new moon, you just kind of sit and everything just kind of passes by. The whirls of the wind are certainly creepy, but like through this whole kind of like weird stagnation of darkness, nothing ever happens. And eventually you feel you have done your part and you are ready to wake Brannick.
Right. So Ballista goes over to Brennan and she begins to like shake his shoulder, wake him up for a second for his shift. Hey, Brennan, wake up. It's your turn to keep watch.
Brannick will wake and kind of ask if anything anything happened. Seems like it was a fairly quiet watch, but he'll light up a torch and he'll get ready. Keep his own vigil for the next couple hours.
You're more or less like staying bundled up in there, or are you kind of moving around this area? Other than like light, what are you doing?
Yeah, I think Brannick will probably he might be moving around a little bit more just to like kind of keep moving and keep like the circulation flowing to try to avoid getting too uh, like avoid the worst of the cold, trying to essentially keep himself all right. But he's not really doing like a patrol or anything. He's sticking pretty close. He's just kind of pacing back
All
and
right,
forth.
more like, yeah, moving in space. When you are good, let me get a perception from you. Yeah, so I think this like bit of time is going to all be like this standoff of you trying to like jump and do calisthenics to keep yourself warm, to losing the torch in the wind and trying to struggle to get it relit, and then you're freezing cold again, and you're just gonna go through this cycle of you pretty much don't ever watch, but nothing also ever happens. So there is that. But this whole hour is gonna be that like 3-part cycle of try to get warm, lose the light, get cold, try to get warm, lose the light, get cold. But eventually, more or less try to continue on, try to soldier on for the second part of your watch.
Yeah, like after realizing so much time has passed and like he hasn't really been paying any attention, he's kind of like gonna like thank his lucky stars that nothing came while he was futzing around, and he's gonna try and be a little more perceptive on his second hour of watch. But it's cold and he's bored and
Yeah, I think you are going to be a solid like 2 hours of that exact same thing where you get cold trying to light the torch, you get warm having the torch go out, you get cold trying to light the torch, you get warm having the torch go out, and then eventually you're just going to see as Fen is just kind of like staring at you coming out of their meditation, and you have a solid understanding that it's probably time to just get under the blankets and let Fen do the rest of the watching.
it's all right, Fen. I saw that nothing would happen while I was on watch.
Enjoy your rest, my friend.
Yeah, so Brannick will go to go back to sleep. Let Fen take over.
What do you have in mind for how Fen watches?
So I take it to at the camp. Everybody's pretty huddled together.
Yeah, I would say at this point, unless you guys are not treating Valine in such a way, this is a lot like a mother like cuddling up with her puppies. She's got 4 puppies or 3 puppies, and you guys can cuddle up with her for warmth. I assume that's how you guys are sleeping because it is cold.
Yeah, so I guess Fen will uh, keep his back to the rest of them and keep his watch, but no light. Just kind of sit there and listen.
Gotcha. Does that put you maybe like directly in the center of that little circle? If they're like on like the northern end. Um,
Yeah,
gotcha. So you're just kind of in like a central portion, giving yourself the ability to hear if something's gonna come, it's gonna come from the east or the west, and you basically have an ear to the east and an ear to the west, and you're just in like the center of this garden or this sculpture garden. Yeah, let me get a perception from you, please. This evening, or this start for you to your watch, gonna go by with a little bit of calming of the weather. By and large, you kind of have this as just almost a continuance to your meditation as you are honing your ears to those slight little whispers in the wind, in the same way that you can almost hear the way a creature affects the breeze through like tree leaves. You're starting to kind of like hone that brain down into listening to the way the wind kind of talks about things that disrupt it. Gives you a solid sense of like what is around you, and it seems very natural and um, keeps you in like an equanimous state, very like evened off through your whole part of this watch. And we'll kind of see how into the next hour. Are you changing anything? Otherwise, another perception, please.
Ben is wondering, and I forgot to ask the group this. Have we seen the aurora in the last 2 days?
Yeah, the aurora rose today. It's still happening.
Okay. So yeah, I'm just gonna do the same thing. Keep my center position, and just trying to close my eyes and extend my other senses.
Got to roll another perception there for me, please. This hour is going to progress by in a very similar way. You find yourself just kind of in this singular state of watching over those that you have found to watch over yourself. And you kind of find yourself as like one with this moment in life on this island, and kind of embrace it, and nothing seems to happen. You're getting closer and closer to that dawn's light. If you are sticking to it, let me get another perception, please. This next block of your meditation is going to find yourself distracted. This is kind of a twist in the weather, and part of the first bits of distraction is simply recognizing it, and then you start to allow the thoughts to creep in deeper and deeper as you feel like bits of snow not really cutting you, but you feel them hitting your cheeks, and you start to recognize that while you're not being like attacked, your mental state is being assailed by the snow and you are losing. And that pulls you even further out of the meditation. You sit there and try, and nothing ever really pulls you out of it. But that time flies by, and it eventually comes to the point where you're doing the same thing. Let me get another perception, please.
Yeah, I think now that my concentration's been broken, I'm gonna go back to the cave or the where they're huddled up, light a torch, and pace in space.
Excellent. So back with the others, torch lit. Are you going to try to leave it with them where it is safest, or are you going to try to carry it with you?
I'll leave it with them, and then just on the
But you're still
outskirts.
right next to them.
Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, you have a little bit better of a view of this actual garden about you. The weather itself is going to go from like this horrendous blizzard that pulled you out to a odd little calm that you keep sensing and feeling like it's going to break. But the others are going to start to rouse themselves before you even recognize that that calm in the weather has not broken. It's still snowing. It's still blowing winds, but instead of like 20, 30 mile an hour winds, it's like 15 or so mile an hour. Instead of snow falling in a whiteout, you're seeing snow falling slowly. And that's around when they'll be waking up.
So Fen will make the morning meal for everyone and say that it was a uneventful night. The weather seems to be not ceasing, but the fury is lessened, I believe.
Perhaps Oral has taken her leave again temporarily.
Should make for an easier day of travel.
Fortunately, shouldn't stay gone too long, but of course we should make the most of what time we have before things pick up again.
Come Valix many strides. Let us put some leagues in.
So, in like an initial kind of morning survey, as the others are kind of getting up and as the aurora is starting to arise, and you have more of a view, you can certainly see from this point that this structure that you all sheltered in is kind of on the initial portion of a peninsula, and you have a peninsula to the west. Part of it seems to go southward, which you guys are likely to have seen like flashes of in the blizzard. That it's something you could like get back to that area. And you can see that it goes north. You see the cliffs to the east. Any thoughts as to your initial direction?
Bernick's thinking west.
Yeah, my bad for asking over and over again, but I'm just looking for that confirmation that you're still doing the same thing. But if you are, let's just go for a survival.
Would that be me, or I'm assuming Fen is still kind of taking the.
My bad. Yeah, still Fen. Yep. Yeah. So this is probably going to take most of your morning as you all set out. Highest passive perception is Fen. You're going to continue to notice, Fen, that as you go on, the snow is lessened and lessened before by the time you all make it to this most kind of western point of this area, the snow is just kind of like lightly adrift in a light wind. I think you guys will probably spot. Let me actually get perceptions from you all here. Can I get a perception from you, Valixis?
I
Leaning at this point, unless he rolls high, this is effectively, you guys can see another crash ship. All right, that's good enough. You guys can see that there are two more crash ships, one to the south here and one to the north of this peninsula as you all get to kind of this most western point. And you can see signs of the peninsula around you. Continuing on up, offering the same question, are we going down the next peninsula?
Yeah, we're gonna stick with it.
yeah.
We might as well at this point. We did most of it.
Gotcha.
With our luck, as soon
another,
as we turn away from that, it'll be when.
Yeah, I know.
another survival from you? I think it's silly. I think they should have put it to a roll, but this is quite literally the peninsula. They want you to explore half the island. So as you all continue across, you're probably going to be close to evening. As you are coming through this peninsula, you are going to start to get closer and closer to the area where you saw that ship earlier in the day to the north. And as you get close to that, about 200 feet from the coast, you are going to see kind of a bump in the snow that stands about 3 or so feet up above like the level of the snow. Other than kind of being like a structure in an open plain of smooth, it looks like snow. But there's going to come a point where you all recognize that it's not simply a snow pile as you continue around this area. Um, Probably another moment where Fen probably sees that there's like a hint of like a black, deep darkness just inside of like one side of this snowbank. What do you all do when you approach this?
Then will appears to be some kind of structure. Um, Perhaps we found what we came for.
Maybe not a structure. You just see like blackness in a weird like growth in the snow kind of thing. It's hard to say it's more than like a little mound in the snow.
Okay.
Perhaps something. Yeah, perhaps something. We should certainly look cautiously.
So as you all kind of like continue around this, you're seeing this thing from different sides before you eventually see that blackness. You guys can theoretically approach from the west, where you have seen the most of this little dark spot in the snow. Again, the snow is probably piled like 3 or so feet above the rest of the snow around it. On your snowshoes, you're walking on top of it. It's 3.5 or so feet tall. But if you were to like walk without them, you're sinking in a little bit less than like Valine, who's sinking about like 3.5 or so feet down with each step. What kind of thoughts do you have? You can approach pretty close, and still all you'll see is that it is like a black part of this snow. Are you gonna start brushing it off? Are you guys gonna like melt it with a fireball? What's crossing your minds as to approaching it?
About how like wide or big around is the like this mound?
Roll a perception for me. And looking around, it's probably almost a circle. You're probably looking at like 6 or 8 foot diameter.
Um, so Brannick wants to try and get a little bit closer to the black, and he wants to see, does it look like this might be um the same kind of material that the tower was made of, the um Yithrin one that we went and explored back on the mainland?
Yeah, so do either a history or an investigation here. Or arcana. I think this can be familiar enough to you to recognize as kind of like a black marble, which is not the same just to remind you.
Right. Okay. Should we Brennick will kind of turn back towards the others. Should we try and get some of this snow off? See what we're dealing with?
Any hands make light work.
Assuming that you are sharing that what you've discovered is black marble, there is no way for Valine to contain herself before she says, Professor Scant, and you're going to hear a voice. And it's going to say, Dear old me. And you're going to see as that little black piece of marble kind of like jumps, but it doesn't really move. And snow is going to kind of start to fall from it before you see that there is a hand grasping this orb, and it is frozen in place. But you at least have heard the voice. Valine's kind of jumped out with this reaction. What are your thoughts here as you all see this frozen hand, the orb inside of it, and
Valine, you know this person?
roll a intelligence save for me, please, Brenna. Valine is going to kind of like lean in and almost like crawl forward on her hands to look really close. This black marble looks maybe about like 6 or 8 inches in radius, so like a foot or a little bit beyond diameter wise. No, probably even less than that. Probably like 3 to 6 inches in radius, so like 6 to 12. Yeah, I think it said that wrong. But she's going to look down close and just kind of say, It's delightful to hear your voice again, Professor Scant. And you hear, like, as it kind of shakes again, and in reply, Mistress, I am so glad to see you as well. I guess that would have been here. And it's just gonna kind of shake around. It appears she still has me, madam. My apologies. And you're gonna see like one last shake as it kind of like bounces down. Valine's gonna kind of like wave a hand out towards this like puff of snow, and is definitely about to smack the head off of Ness. You are going to see as a white opaque hood and head are going to fly away from this puff of ice and snow, and you'll see like the shoulder and like the neck kind of like swept away with the wind of kind of her trying to motion the snow away, and this like ice head is just going to kind of fall down beside it a few feet away as Valina. She looks better for it. Cracks that little joke for you.
That's certainly one way to deal with a thief. Seems she seems she got what was coming to her.
What does Valixis think as this happens?
Well, this is just like, oh my, she just she's just standing there like, and just she has no thoughts on it right now.
And Fen, what are you doing as you kind of see this happen?
Fen, who is ignorant about the arcane art, just narrows his eyes and files it all away. Note taken.
So as you all are kind of witnessing this happen, the next thing that is going to come across is as Valine is going to stand up tall, and you're just going to hear her say, "You fools, you've grounded the vessel." And then a moment of silence before her feet are going to shuffle. I need you all to roll an initiative. My bad. Yeah, this is a psych out. I out of habit drop those things, but this is going to be all on Blackboard. Alrighty. Besides that, I threw you into initiative. Try to block that out of your mind. Felixis, what is your initial thought as you hear Valine yell out, "You grounded the boats, you fools," and then go silent? What does Felixis do? If you are talking, you are up. Just heard you.
She kind of asked, "What do you mean we grounded the boat?"
Gotcha. So caught off guard. Are you doing anything in response? Otherwise, I'm gonna say on some level, this is kind of a dodge reaction as you're kind of like questioning, like, what did you just say?
Oh yeah, that's pretty much it. She's like, "What did you just say?" And she's not.
Brennick, what is going on in your mind as you hear Valine say this?
Yeah, he's taken aback by like suddenly stand up tall, and it seemed like she said that much more authoritatively than something about her has changed, and maybe it's because they finally found the orb. I think he's going to um he's actually going to cast detect thoughts on Valine to try to sense what's going through her head.
That is your action to cast.
Yes, detect thoughts is an action.
And the first level is you just gain surface thoughts. The second time you use it is when I make a save.
Right. So I would get surface thoughts, and I think I can choose if I want to try and go deeper. Then they get the save.
I think as far as surface thoughts go, the fact that she's speaking right now, I kind of have to stick with that. Um, Maybe giving you a little bit of her stun, you kind of have this idea of like calling out for her assistant, like for help, basically. Um, Giving it like a favorable thought. Maybe Valine is calling out for her kobolds in a moment of like lapse, almost like if you wake up out of fainting kind of thing. That's kind of like a favorable thought of how that might feel, but it's kind of like that calling to like those who help you. Um, Kind of a general confusion, and then like sensing her height and like that recognition, like she's looking down at the earth. My body is large. I feel like that's kind of like the surface thoughts that you can glean.
Okay. Yeah, I think Brian just like can tell us you had a vessel. But other than that, he's not really sure what to make of all this, so that's kind of all he's doing now. He might maybe just instinctively like back away about 5 feet. But other than that, that's all for him.
In this next moment, you'll see as Valine kind of like still stood up tall, still like a little bit of that confused look on her face, kind of looking across all of you, seeing this glass like statue of white ice and the head of Nas scattered across the ice. What has happened to me? Who are you? What have you done to me? And you're just going to see as one of her arms like reaches back as she's staring down at the three of you. And what is Fen going to do?
Ben is going to put his hands up and say, "Your mind has been confused. We've been traveling together. Your size is due to some mischievous magic from the trigger. We're not your enemies. Come to your senses."
Make a persuasion check. From there, if there's nothing else from Fen, you'll get your response like as time kind of flows here. But what is crossing Velixis? Are you responding at all? Or are you kind of continuing this same um, inquiry and kind of skeptical view?
She's just still just kind of done that. She's not sure what to actually do in this situation. She's more or less a little bit surprised. So she does approach a little bit, but she doesn't really do anything bad, like or attack or anything. She just kind of approaches and asks what's going on.
Gotcha. Yeah, so like approaching like palms out.
Yeah,
Are you saying anything?
she said, "Is everything all right? What's going on?" She just repeats that again.
You might see like the slightest bit of a flinch from her back, like raised arm, as you start to approach before she kind of like releases the tension. Brennick, what are you doing?
Sorry, I think my Bluetooth cut out for a sec there.
Gotcha. Seems obligatory every game.
Is it on me or sorry?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, my bad. We were also waiting for you to see what you were doing. Not sure how long you were cut out for, but effectively, Fen has tried to convince her to kind of like hold off and kind of calm down that you all are trying to help. And Velixis is kind of asking what's wrong and kind of for the state of things. What are you thinking?
Okay, yeah, I heard Alexis saying he wasn't really doing anything, but I think it cut out before he said, so I didn't miss too much, just like a second, 30 seconds. Yeah, so Brannick is, yeah, I think he's gonna follow Fenn's lead. He's gonna try to like, remember the trip with Angajuk, the Rock, trying to just like mention a couple of things that they've been through recently, hoping to jog her memory because he's not really sure what's going on. Doesn't know enough. Maybe it's he's thinking maybe it's the orb has some sort of is having some sort of effect, but he doesn't really know. So aside from saying that, he's kind of just I guess like taking essentially taking the dodge action.
All right, so you're still in kind of a skeptical, like she's still got her arms raised. Something's still wrong here.
Yeah, something's definitely wrong. He doesn't know what. Not exactly. He's similar boat to like Felix. He's not exactly sure what to do. He's essentially trying stalling for time, essentially. Actually, maybe as he says, like, remember the the tripathon, because you can remember the rock. He might, maybe like a visual cue. So he's gonna pull out like one of the rock feathers, and like, thinking maybe that will help if it's some sort of memory something.
So, as Valine kind of looks across to Fen, Valixis, Brennick, and kind of meeting eyes with each of you, you're going to see a face that doesn't recognize you. And in the most frustrated way that you've ever heard Valine speak, you're going to see as she like slams her fists down into the ground, and like the falling snow that has dropped onto her body almost like glides up into the air from the shockwave of her fists. She's just going to yell out into you all, I don't know you. And as she kind of is almost going to start to leap back in a way, and you're going to see as her fist starts to rise into the air and it starts to manipulate the weave, and you start to see as it's collecting particles of light and they're all forming up into her fist. She's just going to reach out, and as she screams, "That's my head," she's just going to reach out at you all with a blast of magic. Let's do a charisma saving throw here, please. Are you there, Rashad? Can I get a charisma save from you?
Yeah, I hit it. I'm not sure why it's not.
Okay, I got you. So, as she reaches out, you're going to see like these multicolored facets of light start to swirl around, and they are going to flash out towards you all. And we are going to go into. Where did I write that down wrong? Yeah, Fen. Fen, you are going to begin your turn here. Your eyes are sparkling with this light as it kind of like drowns and almost like entrances you into this like drunken state where you're just kind of like suffering to move. Effectively, for this moment, you are at disadvantage for attack rolls as you're kind of like stumbling from this spell, as the lights are kind of whirling around in your eyes. What would you like to do?
Uh, Take the dodge.
Gotcha. Going for a dodge action here. So as you're trying to like keep yourself moving, you're feeling like this almost like drunken like effect as the world is kind of moving in a different way than you expect your feet to be moving. Make another charisma saving throw for me, please. And Felixis, what would you like to do?
Tripping balls.
Well, it's gonna dodge the chase the dodge it to try to get out of the way of whatever's coming at it.
Gotcha. So how do you envision yourself moving around? Are you moving away from Brennick? Are you moving away from Fen, towards Valine? Where is your away?
She kind of moves like away from Valine and whatever's coming from her.
Gotcha. And Brennick?
I think Brannick is going to. He's going to kind of hold his ground, kind of seeming to resist those lights, and he's going to attempt to. Um, he's going to cast dispel magic at Feline. He's not sure if this, because he knows she's affected by the Chewingus thing. He's tried that once before, that didn't fix it, but he doesn't know if maybe she's fallen under some other spell. I don't know if he have to essentially select what effect he's targeting, or is it just basically I just choose Feline and cast it on her.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of like bringing a hammer down onto the anvil. You are casting the dispel magic into this mush, and you're hoping what you hit is what you want to hit. I don't think dispel magic has a reason to be like endoscopic surgery. I like the idea that it's kind of like a rough, like you're throwing this into the mix. If there's only one magical effect, only one magical effect will, get hit. But I feel like that's kind of how it works. So when you are ready, I think that is effectively a spell attack. You want, yeah, it's got proficiency 10 plus the spell level is not proficiency. My bad.
So if it's a third level spell or lower, it would be automatically dispelled. It looks like higher is the DC. I have to roll um DC plus the 10 plus the spell's level.
Yeah, my bad. I do need that roll. That was what I was kind of getting at.
And that's an intelligence check.
Uh, yes. Well, I think it's just 10 plus the spell's level. It's not really intelligence. My bad. But what is that? You rolled a 4. Um, so yeah, as your dispel magic kind of smashes into this happening. Yeah, I don't think you're going to see anything seem to change. Her interaction with the weave, kind of the way Valine seems to be acting. You're just kind of like sending through this pulse into that area, and it doesn't seem to like reshape the weave at all.
Okay, and is she standing near where she was like, I guess where she was calling out for Professor, what was it, Scant?
At this point, I would say she's probably backed up at least 20 feet from you all, but is perhaps closer, perhaps further. But on some level, like her reaction has been to step kind of up, and then I think last turn she stepped away from you all, like as she went into casting that spell.
Okay, so I think like so as Brannick is casting that, he's like he's basically shouting like, we're not, we're not trying to hurt you. But I think he would kind of to he would back up himself probably about like another 10 feet or so, like just like maybe, give her space kind of thing. Like she's like a startled animal almost.
Gotcha. And detect thoughts takes a action to manipulate, so you can't do anything with that.
Oh, that's that was gone, I think. Or hold on.
I think it's concentration. I don't think you have anything else breaking it. But otherwise,
Oh yeah, concentration up to 1 minute. Forgot about that.
Yeah, if you end up wanting to or can do something with that, let me know. Otherwise, it's kind of onto her.
It would be an action to try and probe deeper, so I can't do it this turn.
Gotcha. Um. Yeah. So, looking back across you all, little bit of a recognition that she hasn't really affected any of you, and that it's already sort of dropping from the one that she kind of did spin your head on. You're going to see as she kind of twists back around and almost like pointing her body away from you all, kind of like back to you. You see like a glance to move on, and almost looking back before in this moment of hesitation, she's going to reach back out. And as she kind of like reaches out to swing on Felixis, she is going to. Yeah, I think this is just kind of like almost stuck on kind of seeing her head. She's almost just like yelling this like confused kind of I'm dead. I've seen my death. I'm dead. And she's swinging out to Velixis. And will be a big old smash into the ice around you. And that's going to take us to Fen.
So I guess Ben is going to go up and attempt to grab her arm and say, "We don't want to hurt you," and then proceed to hurt her.
Gotcha. All unarmed. What are you going for?
Yeah, I'll and
Or do you actually mean you were going to try to grapple first?
no, I'm not trying to grapple her with her huge gargantuan sus. It was a feint. Yeah, I'm gonna all armed, and I'm going to non-lethal.
Yeah, effectively, if you are in melee combat doing a melee attack, when you would kill someone, you have that choice. You can never accidentally kill somebody with melee attacks. If you ever wanted to keep them alive, that is.
Again, I guess I
So,
would try to stunning
all
fist her
gotcha. Was all armed, like all with the sword, or all like actually with your arms?
using unarmed strikes.
Gotcha. You can throw those strikes. So that one will hit, and you said this was going to be a
Stunning strike.
DC 15.
Yep.
Yeah, so as you kind of like connect with her body, you can feel like you can like force the damage into her with like the actual physical force of your strike. But as you actually like kind of connect into, she's a pretty solid creature, and you can kind of like see the reflection of your key is quickly dissipated inside of this massive form. Bonus action.
So I'll flurry of blows for the extra unarmed strike.
And now at level 7, all your strikes are magical, right?
Correct.
Bam. 2 more solid, quick blows into it for another, what is that, 17?
Yeah, and then that'll be end the turn for me.
So, with the start of this little combat here, I think this is where we are going to call it.